Welcome back, everyone. Today we got a little bit different project. Today we're hooking up our outdoor wood burner to our shop here. But we got to do a couple repairs on our heat exchanger, and I just wanted to go over a few things. I know we're mainly chainsaws around here. We're ramping up a little bit now that we're going to have wood heat out here in the shop. We actually got to put some of these saws to work. So I'll be fiddling with some chains more, be cutting wood, putting some of our builds, see if they actually work in the wood, not just on the dyno. I know a lot of people here burn wood. A lot of people probably already know this. But if you don't, I'm just going to give a couple little pointers, some of the stuff I learned along the way, show what our issue was with this heat exchanger. This is the one that came out of our unit. This one got left with water in over the winter. Pump shut off, water in it, it broke 4 or 5 coils in here. And so it was just as easy to replace it. So if you find yourself in a project like this, most of the time it's going to be using PEX. That's the underground line. They make all sorts of different kind of PEX, so make sure that your clamps and fittings match the pipe and the size that you're using. But the clamps, they're just crimp clamps. They slide on like so. Then they have special pliers, and these actually have a ratcheting mechanism. You can kind of hear it there. That way when you're halfway, you can regrip, reposition to finish the crimp. And they set the depth and everything, so they're all crimped just right every time. And then the cutters. You want to get a nice pair of pipe cutters. This has got the saddle and the blade. Put it on. Keeps the cut pretty square. If you do it right anyway. If you do it right, nice, clean, smooth, square cut. And they make all sorts of different brands of these too. Ugh. But this is definitely the way to go. A nice pipe cutter, because you're going to have plenty of cuts, plenty of splices, plenty of elbows in a project like this. So you want your PEX crimping pliers. You want your hose or pipe cutters. Make sure that they are rated for the type of PEX pipe that you're cutting. And you'll need your assortment of gold. Well, I mean, elbows and fittings, and this is the expensive part. So you want to double check your count. Make sure you got just enough, not too many more. But, you know, get your couplers, get your elbows, get your fittings, get your threaded fittings. If you're going from pipe to PEX, from PEX to copper, copper to schedule 40. So you just want to make sure that all your fittings are right. Most of the time you got your threaded fittings that are schedule 40 or so, and you go right to PEX, run your PEX, make your connections. I really do like working with the PEX stuff. Just super simple, only need a handful of tools, handful of fittings, clamp it on. They normally don't leak, so they're normally pretty good to go. Like I said, this is our old one, broke a few loops, but I'll show you a little bit of the underground, a little bit of the stove hookup, a little bit in the shop, and our heat exchanger. So I just wanted to show what we're going to do. I really hope this helps cut the propane bill down. We got quite a large area here to heat, so hopefully supplementing with the wood is going to help cut costs down. We build all these saws, we might as well get out, get some fresh air, and put them to work. This unit here was a real nice, you know, had the fan, had the thermostat and the settings. We got the louvers on the front. That way we can set it up. But this one got left out of the barn when the boiler wasn't in service and froze, and we actually blew open a few of the lines. Now I'm sure a good radiator person could probably put them together and solder new lines on and everything else, but we got this other unit. It's a little bit bigger. This is 19 by 20. Just a 2-row 19 by 20 that was in a house plenum. So this one was clean, doesn't have any of the dust packed in it. A couple of the fins are bent, but that happens. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this old unit. We'll probably just end up cutting an L shape, slit this, cut the top open, cut the side open. We'll just set this radiator right here, right in this unit. Then we could still use the same fan and the thermostat setup on this one. And don't mind the messy shop. But it's going to go right up there, and we're going to hang it from that truss right in front of the other one. So if the propane furnace does kick on, it will help blow the air this way anyway. But got a little bit of clutter here. We'll have to move some stuff there. Let me show you the hose hookups and everything else. Then we'll get to swapping this radiator project. Alright, you can see here, this is where the radiator's broken, our old heat exchanger. A few of them down here. That's why you don't let them freeze. Well, we got this one all cut out of the housing, and the housing all set up to hold the new heat exchanger. I was grinding on some cylinders, and Dad was nice enough to come out and do this project, so we didn't get any footage of it. But I'll show you what we're going to hang up. So here's that heat exchanger unit. It's got the front baffles. These are adjustable so you can direct the heat flow. This is a 19 by 20 core. And you can see just a little bit too long and just a little bit too tall. Well, we got these eye bolts mounted in the top. That way we can get it hung from our ceiling. And we're going to get some of the actual duct tape to seal this in a little bit better, get all the heat flowing through like it's supposed to. But this unit here, it's got the built-in fan, and we'll just use one of the cheap 110 thermostats that'll plug into an extension cord and turn the fan on and off. Then we'll have the blower, the heat exchanger, plus a propane backup out here. But this is a pretty good size heat exchanger. This one in my furnace at the old house heated the whole house, so it ought to do a pretty decent job supplementing the heat out here. Once we get this all hung up, I'll show you the finished product. Alright, there's the heat exchanger all mounted up to the ceiling. Just some eye bolts and some chain. Now it does have a little bit of downward angle, and that was done mostly on purpose because, you know, heat rises. But we got to aim down a little bit. These were just some leftover PEX pipes that we have. Let me walk back there, I'll show you. Got it lit up with the stage lighting. We got a little bit of extra slack, but once the stove's not fired up yet, so the water's still cold, checking for leaks currently. But once we get some heat in that plastic, it'll become a lot more flexible. We can tuck it up out of the way better. We got our valves right here. Coming through the wall, we'll finish putting up the insulation there. Valve on each end. You see we got the lines marked, return and pump. That is one thing I wanted to mention. Your pump will go to your bottom. So that fitting right there, the bottom of your heat exchanger, the bottom of your radiator, is where your inlet will go. And the return to your boiler will come out the top. That way when the water fills the radiator and it's flowing through, it pushes any air bubbles or air pockets out. If you put the water in the top, the water will just fall down the tubes in the heat exchanger, and it can aerate and get bubbles the whole way. And those bubbles will wreak havoc with your pumps. The pump side will go in the bottom, and you'll push up any air or any pockets of... Well, here's our little thermostat we're using. You can see it's just a 40 to 90 degrees, 110. And I forgot to mention that our heat exchanger fan up there, it does have 3 speeds as well. So we'll just have to see what the load's like on the stove and how the wood burns and everything else to get this fully dialed in. And this is just to, well, hopefully at least 50-50 supplement the propane usage. We'll tie in down here, we'll just cut our hoses, and we'll hook up our insulated Thermopex pipe. I'll show you at the other end, but this is the 4-inch foam-filled pipe. This is supposed to be the real good stuff. I know the price is definitely not that great. It's super expensive, but hopefully that means it's quality. Now I made my own lines with the solid drain tile and then the 1-inch foam insulation around it. Drug the PEX and the foam through the tile, did 2 runs, that was a ton of work. I wish I would have just spent the money, got the right stuff the first time. We'll end up cutting these. We will tee into it. This stuff is super hard to work with. So that's why we don't have a great bend, because this was way after the fact. This pad and stove setup's been here for about 15 years, maybe 17. This is the second stove on here. The first one had some issues about 10-12 years in. There's a check valve in this end. This is a return line. That way the water can't come back this way if anything happens. Got our shut-off valves on both sides at the stove here in case we ever have any issues. We only lose the water that's in the lines. But we are going to end up needing a couple elbows down there to get that hooked up. And here's the aftermath. We only buried this 18-20 inches deep, but we got a nice straight shot to the shop where we're going in. But we didn't even want to mess with the rat wall at the shop, so we'll build a little insulated box out here. Let me get over to it. While we were at it, took out a stump that was right up against the foundation. But this is what we have. This is where we're going in. We don't use this door. It hasn't been opened in a long time. That's actually where my normal filming area is. But this is the insulated pipe. Like I said, that's spray foam, closed cell. So it's not supposed to absorb water or anything. Got our PEX, that's 1-inch PEX. And we'll build a nice insulated box here. And with the hot water going through it, as long as it's flowing and working, that's not likely to ever freeze. Especially once we put it in a box. But we'll go to the inside. Got it all hooked up down there with our third run. We took the old second run out. And that's part of the reason we're doing this too. Last year it ran just the house only. This stove was a bit overkill just for the house. So it was idling more than it was running. It was having creosote issues, wasn't burning very well, and just a couple other issues. The chimney was plugging up, and that's all has to do with the bigger's not always better. But hopefully adding the extra load of the shop now, we'll be able to use, yes, it'll use more wood, but it'll burn cleaner, burn better, and it'll probably be better for the stove and everything involved to have this second line hooked up. Used to go to an animal barn that we no longer use, but this is what we got. These central boilers, they're all spray foamed. Does have a few ports and even has an extra port. Not currently hooked up to hot water, but once we get this fired up, we'll finish checking everything for leaks. And then we gotta get on the wood cutting. So here's a little birdhouse that was built to cover the pipe on the outside. Same thing. It's only got 2 screws on it right now. We'll silicone it into the siding real well once we're all done. But again, until we get the stove fired up and some heat and hot water through these pipes, want to double check, make sure nothing's leaking. Now we'll stuff it full insulation. I'm sure it'll lose some heat here, but this was our only option. Didn't want to try and fight through all the concrete and everything. Kind of last minute on this project, getting a little cold out already, but this is what we came up with, and we'll see how bad the snow melts later on. So if somebody reminds me come December or January, we'll come back out and see if the snow's drifted over this or how much heat we're actually losing here. But you guys keep me on my toes, make sure to remind me. So if you're normal to the channel, I know this was a little bit different, but hopefully you stuck around and enjoyed it. Hopefully it might help you with one of your projects. And if you're new here, welcome aboard. So we built chainsaws. Now we're going to start cutting wood. So hopefully everybody's staying warm out there. And until next time, thanks a lot everyone.